Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Ling Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's stories. A judge halted the state's new and controversial COVID-19 misinformation law. The attorneys on the case say they hope to permanently block the law from taking effect. Evidence relating to the attack on Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, has been ordered to be publicly released. Media outlets have been requesting prosecutors to release the files. The suspect involved in the fatal shooting of 7 co-workers in Half Moon Bay was formally charged on Wednesday. He is being held without bail. A judge halted the state's so-called COVID-19 misinformation and disinformation law on Wednesday. Doctors challenged the law in 2 lawsuits, claiming it violates their constitutional rights.
A judge blocked California's controversial COVID-19 misinformation and disinformation law, also known as AB 2098, in a ruling on January 25th. AB 2098 allows the state's medical board to discipline doctors for spreading so-called misinformation or disinformation about COVID-19 vaccine effectiveness and other treatments. The law faced criticism and 2 lawsuits throughout the legislative process.
We were very happy to hear him say these arguments that we've been making and to understand the importance of this. So one of the problems with any law, right, should be clear enough that somebody knows what it means. But particularly when we're talking about a free speech issue, you have a higher standard to meet. The government has a higher standard to meet in being very clear in what is and isn't allowed. So this law's terms were so vague, we can only guess. And, our clients in this case are very mainstream doctors who might want to question, whether a particular patient should be vaccinated, things like that, and really can't tell whether or not those are allowed. And I think what this law does, one of the biggest problems with this law, is that it causes conscientious doctors to censor themselves.
In Hogue versus Newsom, 5 doctors allege that AB 2098 is unconstitutional under the First and 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. A separate related lawsuit, Wong versus Bonta, makes similar allegations. They argued the law limits the information doctors can provide to their patients. They also argued the law was used to intimidate and punish physicians who disagree with prevailing views on COVID-19. Both lawsuits sought a preliminary injunction to prevent California from enforcing the law.
So it's a preliminary injunction. He ordered the state not to enforce this law starting now, but ultimately we're seeking a permanent injunction so that the law can never be enforced. What happens next is going to depend on what the state does. They can appeal this ruling now if they choose to. They may see the writing on the wall and realize that they are not likely to prevail. And in fact, one of the things that the judge has to find in order to grant a preliminary injunction is that we are likely to prevail on the merits in later proceedings.
Judge William Shub found the law's definition for misinformation and disinformation to be, quote, unconstitutionally vague and ruled in favor of the doctors. AB 2098 defines misinformation as, quote, false information that is contradicted by contemporary scientific consensus, and disinformation as, quote, misinformation with malicious intent or an intent to mislead. Newsom signed the bill into law in September 2022, and it took effect on January 1st, 2023. But the court's ruling now effectively halts the law while the legal challenge plays out.
A judge has ordered that evidence relating to the attack on Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's husband must be released to the public. NTD's David Lamb has the details.
The San Francisco District Attorney's Office introduced audio and video evidence against accused attacker David DePape back on December 14th, but refused to make it public. But on Wednesday, San Francisco Superior Court Judge Stephen Murphy rejected a request from prosecutors to keep the evidence secret and is now ordering it to be publicly released. Under this order, the SF District Attorney's Office must release the 911 audio calls, interview, home surveillance video, and police body camera footage from the attack on Paul Pelosi. The ruling came in response to a request by a group of media outlets to gain access to the footage, despite prosecutors' requests to keep it secret. Accused attacker DePap's defense attorney, Adam Lipson, objected to the release of the evidence, arguing it might impair his client's ability to get a fair trial. 42-year-old DePap is accused of breaking into Pelosi's home on October 28th and striking the 82-year-old husband of former House Speaker Pelosi. DePap is a Canadian national and is in the U.S. illegally. He faces state and federal charges, including attempted murder. If convicted, he could face life in prison. He pleaded not guilty. It is unclear when the evidence will be unsealed.
Representative Adam Schiff, who led an impeachment effort against the former President Donald Trump, is running for Senate in 2024. He launched his bid on Thursday for the seat currently held by fellow California Democrat Dianne Feinstein.
I've always believed that what's right matters, that the truth matters, and that decency matters. That's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. The struggle isn't over.
Schiff's Senate bid comes as House Speaker Kevin McCarthy rejected him and Representative Eric Swalwell from serving on the Intelligence Committee in the 118th Congress. Schiff had previously chaired the Intel Committee, but McCarthy claims Schiff repeatedly lied to the American public as a representative. Schiff was accused of fabricating information about the Russian collusion narrative and then leaking it during the Trump administration, something that Schiff denies. His Senate bid announcement follows Democratic Representative Katie Porter's bid, also for 89-year-old incumbent Feinstein's seat. Feinstein still has not announced whether or not she will run again. Amid the ongoing homeless crisis in San Francisco, the city will appeal the injunction regarding a homeless encampment lawsuit. The city claims the judge's order last year was unclear and is putting them in a difficult position.
City Attorney David Chu filed a notice of appeal on Tuesday against Judge Donna Reu's order in Coalition on Homelessness versus City and County of San Francisco. The appeal was sent to the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. The preliminary injunction order issued on December 23rd prevents the city from enforcing certain laws prohibiting public lodging or camping against, quote, involuntarily homeless individuals. That's as long as there's more people experiencing homelessness than the number of available shelter beds. Previously, the city said the order is broad, but the court did not clarify. In a statement, Chu said, "There are people living on our streets who refuse shelter, and there are those who have secured a shelter bed but still choose to sleep on the streets. It is unreasonable to tell the city that it is powerless to do anything in those situations. We tried to seek clarity on the scope of this injunction, but the court declined to provide that. Unfortunately, we have no choice but to appeal this decision. The city has until February 20th to file an opening brief on appeal."
The suspect in Half Moon Bay shooting was charged in court yesterday. It was presented with 7 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. It is also facing enhancements, including special circumstance multiple murder. Enhancements can increase penalties if convicted. Prosecutors say it's possible they will seek the death penalty, even though that's rare in California. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the investigation.
This investigation is 2 days old. There's an awful lot more to learn.
66-year-old Chun-Li Zhao was formally charged with premeditated murder on Wednesday. 7 counts of premeditated murder and a single count of attempted murder. Zhao is a Chinese citizen who's lived in the U.S. for at least 10 years. He is being held without bail.
He is not a citizen of this country. There's plenty of motive to run. For that reason, it was, to me, a very straightforward and simple request for no bail.
His first court appearance was postponed until February 16th. No plea has been entered. Prosecutors filed enhancement charges in their criminal complaint. They include alleged special circumstances, accusing the suspect of personally and intentionally shooting to kill, and multiple murder.
Multiple murder, what that means under California law is the defendant's punishment, if convicted on these charges, could be life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
California law declares that defendants convicted of murder with special circumstances can be eligible for the death penalty. But Governor Gavin Newsom declared a temporary ban on executions in 2019. The state has not executed a condemned inmate since 2006. The killings took place at the mountain mushroom farm where Zhao worked and lived, and at Concord Farms about a mile away. Prosecutors say they have an idea of the motive, but did not share what it was. The local district attorney says it was not inspired by the Monterey Park shooting 2 days earlier.
Whether this is any evidence of copycat of Monterey Park, and we believe the answer is no.
Authorities say early evidence suggests the attacks stemmed from a workplace grievance. Community organizers are offering emotional and spiritual support. Prayers are being held, and a mass is planned for next week.
We understand when things like this happen, there's spiritual battle all around us, and good and evil is all around us, and evil manifests itself in things like this. Half Moon Bay is a community of about 12,000 people south of San Francisco. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
We are going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. More on the Half Moon Bay mass shooting. A local recalls the friendship and fond memories she shared with one of the victims. Data showed that California is leading the nation in zero-emission vehicle sales. 1 in every 5 cars sold in the state is reportedly zero-emission. And tax season officially starts this year. We'll have tax experts share tips on do's and don'ts for 2022 tax year. That and more on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Ling Zhang. A close friend mourns after one of the 7 victims in the Half Moon Bay shooting died. She said he was a family friend and a good man.
When friends of farm supervisor Marciano Martinez heard of the shooting at the Half Moon Bay mushroom plantations on Monday, they had a sinking feeling. They knew he had to have been there. Martinez was a migrant from Mexico and worked every day except Saturdays. He rarely took time off for holidays like Thanksgiving. When an alarm went off at night, he'd rush on site. Even with friends in social situations, he'd lament when a crop didn't turn out well, blaming poor seeds, or he'd rave about a stellar harvest.
Martin was a wonderful person. He was sweet. He cares about everyone around him. Everyone loved him.
50-year-old Martinez was among 7 people killed by 66-year-old Chen-Li Zhao, a fellow immigrant farm worker. Beyond his devotion to work, Martinez was praised as a fiercely loyal and good-hearted man. Unmarried and with no children, Ortega said he gradually became a part of her family. On Christmas Day 2020, she and her family even managed to drag Martinez away from the farm to open presents for just half an hour before he went back to work.
My husband was the kind of person that's not easy to trust people. He trusts Martin with his life. He trusts Martin with his house. He trusts Martin with his wife. He knew he don't have that much time left. And he told him if he can make sure his wife was okay to be, if he can be there for me.
When Ortega's husband was ill, Martinez would rush to the hospital after work. As her husband's condition took a turn for the worse, he asked Martinez to look after his wife, and Martinez followed through with the promise. After her husband passed away in 2020, a devastated Ortega said Martinez indeed became a rock of support.
Now I feel lost without him. That guy, he don't know what he did. It's not only to me, to so many people. He don't know what he did, really. He really turned my life around.
Martinez loved romantic Mexican bands, and he played accordion at church and parties. In turn, Ortega, a talented cook, would prepare Mexican chiles rellenos, tacos, or her coveted homemade tortillas. On Monday, the day of the shooting, she had surprised him with one of his favorite meals for lunch, ribeye steak, peppers, and baked potato. Little did she know it would be his last meal.
One of the co-workers told me that he really was enjoying his meal, like never see him before. And I asked him what he was eating. He's like, steak. And I'm like, I know, I made it for him.
Zhao appeared in court on Wednesday after he was charged with 7 counts of murder. He did not enter a plea and was held without bond. The next court proceeding in the case was set for February 16th.
Recent data shows that California is leading the zero-emission vehicle sales across the nation. However, elsewhere, consumer confidence may be waning for ZEVs.
The sale of zero-emission vehicles, or CEVs, increased more than 100% in 2 years in California. According to data from the California Energy Commission, it made up nearly 19% of all cars sold and 40% of CEV sales nationally in 2022. Last year, CEV sales in the state were 38% higher than in 2021 and 138% higher when compared to 2020. California also had around 80,000 shared electric vehicle chargers installed across the state. Just 10 years ago, CEV vehicles made up only 2% of sales in the state. The state's incentives, like rebate programs, may have helped boost CEV sales. But across the country, CEV sales only made up 5.8% last year of all car sales, suggesting that nationally, consumers may lack confidence in them. In a statement, Governor Gavin Newsom said, California continues to lead the zero-emissions vehicle revolution with groundbreaking policies and investments that drive innovation, create good jobs, and expand CEV access and affordability across the state. Just last year, the state mandated that all new vehicles sold by 2035 must be fully electric or plug-in hybrids. Yet in September of 2022, the state's power grid manager issued an alert asking consumers to conserve power and not charge their electric vehicles amid a heat wave. This begs the question if California's power infrastructure amid ongoing power issues is ready to phase out gas cars. In addition, EV batteries contain critical minerals that are in limited supply.
The official tax filing season kicked off this week, and people filing their returns are already seeing significant changes this year. Here are some do's and don'ts to make your filing experience as smooth as possible.
This tax season, expect surprises that could impact your wallet. Several tax breaks have changed, and the IRS has announced new upgrades.
Every tax year, there's something new for people to deal with.
Money coach Lynette Calfani-Cox has these 5 do's and don'ts to avoid surprises when filing your taxes this year. 1 do, file electronically.
You're going to get a faster refund check if you're owed.
2, this year there's no stimulus money headed your way, and there's been changes to certain tax credits, like the enhanced child tax credit, which was up to $3,600 per child and is now down to a maximum of $2,000.
For a family that had 2 small kids, before they would have got $7,200. Now they're only going to get $4,000.
Which leads to tip 3. Don't expect a fat check from Uncle Sam. Last year, the average refund issued was $3,176. Experts say that's expected to be much lower this year.
The fact that many people aren't going to get that big tax refund check that they had been anticipating is going to hurt a lot of families' budgets.
4, do get help filing, either from a professional or from the IRS. The IRS expects improved customer service this year. The agency says it's hired more than 5,000 people to take calls and added more in-person staff to support taxpayers. And 5, don't procrastinate and file on time. This year, the official date to file returns by is Tuesday, April 18th.
Tax filing and payment deadlines will be extended for anyone living in counties declared federal disaster areas due to recent natural disasters. That includes storm victims in several counties of California. They now have until May 15th, 2023 to file their returns. Now let's check in with NTD's Tyler Castillo for today's Sports Roundup.
I'm Tyler Castillo, taking you through the California Today Sports Roundup. Jordan Poole converted Dante DiVincenzo's inbounds pass into a layup with 2 seconds remaining, allowing Golden State to survive Stephen Curry's ejection and a wild finish that resulted in a victory over Memphis in San Francisco. Curry was ejected in the final 2 minutes after leading a Golden State rally from a 9-point deficit. Curry had 34 points and Klay Thompson scored 24 for the Warriors, who have alternated losses and wins over their past 8 games. Ja Morant finished with 29 points and 12 assists for the Grizzlies, who have lost 4 in a row to start a 5-game road trip. Warriors 122, Grizzlies 120. LeBron James amassed 20 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds. Anthony Davis added 21 points and 12 rebounds in his return from a right foot injury, and host Los Angeles completed a season sweep of San Antonio. Rui Hachimura scored 12 points in his Lakers debut after he was acquired in a trade with the Washington Wizards on Monday. Davis played 26 minutes in just his 6th career game off the bench after missing the past 20 games. James now is 157 points away from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record. Keldon Johnson scored 25 points and Zach Collins added 16 for the Spurs, who lost for the 8th time in their past 9 games and the 11th time in their past 13. Lakers 113, Spurs 104. Pascal Siakam had 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists as Toronto began a season-high 7-game trip with a win in Sacramento. Toronto held the Kings to a season-low point total. Kevin Huerter made 5 3-pointers and scored 21 points to lead the Kings, who trailed by as many as 20 in the 3rd quarter. Domantas Sabonis finished with 9 points and 8 rebounds, but committed a career-high 9 turnovers. Raptors 113, Kings 95. And that's the Sports Roundup for today.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Leng Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.